So, hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, welcome back. Hope you all are having a great time. Um, to talk a little bit about the videos today by Mr. Tim Wise. They were really interesting, of course. I really like the one concerning what I call the creation of white wealth. And so he's given a brief history concerning a lot of the programs and opportunities that individuals who were white had when they first came to the country, the development of the country, and all these different things. Again, like things such as the Head Right program, which I thought was very interesting, right, where the new Europeans came over and they were given land and tools in order to to farm these grounds, right? And so this is free land, free labor. They're not only able to pick up, of course, a craft or a skill, but they're given land, which in that point in time, early on in America's history, was extremely important because land was a sense of political, economical power and authority. Only individuals with land and slaves were able to vote, hold different positions in offices, as well as be able to interact on a judicial level as well, right? And so, where you have not only just bondage and slavery of African descended people, you also have individuals who are white getting another leg up. Some of the things that we talked about and discussed earlier. Another interesting point that I actually thought was cool. Well, not cool. No, yeah, it stuck out to me. As Tim Wise said, is over 240 million acres of land that was freely given to whites. And he said even today people still live on that land that they were freely given. And before I continue, of course, I'm not really focusing on the things where he was discussing concerning how individuals in America want small government, not large government. That's not something that I'm really emphasizing, although I do understand that point. However, getting back to the points I'm making, the advantages that individuals who are white had received based upon the color of their skin. As I said, 240 million acres of land given out freely with tools in order to farm and mow those lands and those spaces. And millions of people still live on that land today. As we know, even in today's land or today's terms, right? Land and property, all those things are just as important today as they were back then. Now, of course, anyone can vote over the age of 18 and all these other things. But however, what we do know about is that property is one of the, of course, it's like up and down, but it's a great investment. It's something that people do want and desire to have. It's the true authentication of what wealth really signifies and what wealth really means, right? And so to have individuals who have more than likely, if you've kept this land for over hundreds of years, you've cultivated that land. Now, you may have bought more land out, and you may have a ranch. You may have a land in a space where you have built a house and a home for your family, but this was freely given to you. And this is all given to people, or white people, right? During a time, again, where black people or Africans at that time were not given the opportunity to start accumulating wealth. And so when you really think about that, when you have even 50 or 60 years of let's be completely honest. So we see that the Homestead Act was actually in 1862. We see that that's where, of course, where people were able to get the free land. But we don't see African Americans actually able to receive either any benefits or loans, or loans would be those benefits, but to buy their own land. And so when you have a community or group of people who are X'd out for a long period of time of something that's actually extremely crucial to thriving in America, well, what type of foundation do you think that they were able to have, right? You have people who have, just like I said, cultivated this land, made it into something beautiful, and you're just now possibly getting the opportunity way later on with the housing loans and the FHA programs. And even that was problematic, right? Because as he talked about on a practical level, well, excuse me, that's what he's talking about VA, but for FHA, where individuals are able to get or receive home loans to subsidize, of course, their housing payments and all these other things, right? Very important stuff. But FHA, they were purposely creating laws and purposely denying individuals who are black and brown housing loans simply because of racial biases, right? That's just the underlying tone. whether if it's racial bias, it's like I don't like you and I don't think you're gonna be able to pay for X, Y, Z reasons, or even if it's something as crazy as redlining, right, where you have spaces where they're pretty much designated as white areas, and so the banks will purposely deny individuals the opportunity to receive loans in these or people of color to receive loans for houses in that area, specifically for the reason of keeping that area predominantly white or all white in most cases, and we still see traces of that in today's day. I mean, excuse me, in today's world, right, where you have places like, say, close by Santa Monica Beach or Venice, and the piers and all those spaces, which are predominantly, of course, richer, more affluent areas. Um, but those spaces are usually predominantly white for the most part, or at least the black community population there is not as great as it is in somewhere like Inglewood or Compton, right? And those are traces of things such as the Homestead Act, things such as the FHA program, and then even the VA program, as Tim Wise was discussing, as you have veterans who come home after serving their terms with the military, fighting for the country, where the VA program was supposed to be an opportunity for these veterans to come back and then get a good start at life, whether that be going back to college and getting an education or receiving skills in order to be translated into some type of job. You see that for the most part, in theory, as Tim Wise even said, it sounds good, right? And it's something that's supposed to be very beneficial. However, practically speaking, you had individuals in the VA who were, of course, not allowing individuals who are of color, predominantly black individuals, to not receive those benefits. And even if you were an individual who were able to go to college, and remember back then, it's a lot more hostile for individuals who are of color to go to a college is predominantly white space, right? Unless you were going to a HBCU. So you have an individual who's black, who's going to, say, just a normal, regular, or PWI, right? And even, actually, one thing I do want to point out, me even saying a normal or white college, right? That's even problematic because that's even showing that some of my internalization of some of these ideas, right? However, moving forward, what I was getting at was that you have an individual who is a veteran coming home, who is a person of color, going to a PWI and navigating that hostile environment, and they may receive their degree. However, practically speaking, when you take that degree and go for a job, you still have people with racial biases. And when this is a point in time in the early 60s, right, where still people were very prejudiced, as the prejudice is the word. And so they would purposely deny individuals opportunities for interviews, for jobs, for positions, or opportunities simply because of the color of their skin. And these are individuals who are, of course, black and brown people who had responsibilities to their families. And so the main argument or thing that I'm really trying to get at is the whole idea of like, well, why does this matter, right? And we see that when you have, again, talking about history, you have individuals who are able to get free land, something that you usually have to buy and purchase, right? They have free land, they're able to toll that land, they're able to cultivate that land. And over the years, this land develops into something that is great, as opposed to individuals who were black and who were slaves, right? Who did not receive any free land, who were actually working the land. And then you have this time even after slavery, right? The question I like to ask all the time: well, what jobs did these individuals have? What skills and tools did they, or what skills and education did they have? And so you see that that's more labor force or labor work, correct? And so they don't have the same opportunities as individuals who had received that free land and able to begin to cultivate something on that land, right? And then you still continue to see things of Jim Crow laws and segregation and prejudice and racism, this blatant racism, right? And the presence of like the KKK, all these different entities which were truly trying to keep out black progress, right? These things were, of course, not beneficial for an individual who was fresh out of slavery or a generation or two out of slavery, who didn't have a leg up because they didn't receive any free land, who may have been trying to, well, not may have, they were trying to create better opportunities for their family, right? But an individual who wanted to get a housing loan was denied because they were black. Or they went to the military and they served, and then they go to the VA and they were denied either access to college or program, or even when they got the skills and tools that they needed to go into a job or to the workforce, they were denied that job simply because of the color of their skin. And so these opportunities for the black community to progress themselves, they were denied these opportunities, right? And we, just like as I said earlier, we know that these things are important, right? Why? Because we know that we see that these are the production of unfair advantages, right? Financial, socially, politically. Because as I said before, financially, right? If you have land, you have that's wealth, that's property. People want that, and that's just that's an understandable thing. Next thing is socially, right? Where you're able to be in these spaces with other individuals who are land-owning individuals, who have an education, who have the skills and tools and all these things that are very helpful for your success in America, right? A very competitive society. You're able to network with these individuals. And politically, again, way back when, you needed land and slaves in order to be able to have some type of say-so in the political arena, correct? And so when you're given that leg up to be a part of these spaces and get these different or be in these different circles, right? Not only is it financial, social, political, but it's even psychologically, right? Where you start thinking more highly of yourself and you're looking at other people, and even what Tim Wise like to say, right, where it is the whole idea of like the underprivileged, and it seems like, or not seems like, it is a passive voice. You're not discussing the issues that led to them being underprivileged. And so when you have an individual who's white and who's been a part of all of this and who has received a lot of these benefits, not only just like I said, financial, social, and politically more advanced, and feel as if, oh no, the last part I was saying was that they're psychologically, they feel as if they deserve these things. They look down upon the individuals who are black, completely forgetting or negating the fact that they're just getting out of slavery. They're a generation or two out of slavery. They don't have the skills and opportunities as these other rich or affluent white individuals had. Whether if it's land, if it's just the opportunity to go to school, the opportunity to go to college, even if you're not rich and if you're on land, the fact that you still have the opportunity to go to these spaces simply because of the color of your skin, that is a leg up, right? And we see that, we know that when you have an area where you have highly educated, financially stable, politically driven, and socially advanced individuals, people who are high social network clusters, we know that these are the areas where schools are usually better funded. They have better resources. There's a high opportunity for these students or the kids in that area to succeed. We also know that when you're in these spaces, that's the same places where businesses and jobs, they're going to go because they're attracted to that area because they know that this is something that's going to be good and beneficial, right? And of course, that's a little bit more of the city. You call suburbs, whatever you want to say, right? But these are going to be areas with, again, better educational outcomes or better educational tools and resources, better networks, simply because everyone who's educated and everyone who's had this leg up are in these spaces. And they're predominantly white because of the historical events that happened. And so when you have all these individuals in the space, then of course that does create like this wall and this barrier. And again, right, discussing issues of redlining. Even when we talked about in the other video, Tim Wise was discussing in a current day event where you had individuals who were white trying to pass legislation that would pretty much block out any person of color, right? These things, these issues, they still exist, right? These are issues that we need to address because if not, right, we know that individuals who are not able to be a part of these spaces are going to be disadvantaged because they're not going to have access to great public schools because public schools are solely funded and they run and thrive on the what is the word I'm looking for? They pretty much the house, the amount of money that the houses in that area can accumulate. And so when your schools are funded through that and you're in an area where, say a good area, right? Like the people who give them a leg up, they have nice houses, good houses. Those schools get a lot more money for teachers, for resources, for technology, even for spending per student per capita, correct? And so these students have a lot better opportunities even after the fact they've been given a leg up. So that's even more advantage and more privilege. Where you have individuals who are black and who were disadvantaged because of all these different things that had happened to them, their schools are still poorly funded and poorly sustained. And we, as America, we always talk about the importance of an education. So how can you truly say that things are all equal and all opportunities are equitable where there is no true, what is the word I'm looking for? At least these systems are not equitable, correct? Simply because of the fact someone's already given a leg up and you have a disadvantaged group. But even in this, right, you would think that the resources be shifted this way. However, what we do know is that not only is the advantage group and the disadvantaged group like this, but the advantage group is then even that much more favored. The disadvantaged group is even that much more put down in the drops, right? And so these are the issues that we really need to be talking about. And as you saw, I actually said that you can stop that video at 8:45, and it does discuss something else that we're going to talk about later. We're talking about post-racial society, but the other video that Tim Wise discussed was the white denial video, right? And what was really interesting is that even all the stuff that we were just talking about the FHA and the VA and the New Deal and how all these different advantages were given to individuals who are white, we still have issues of white denial, right? Where many white people have said that they don't think that racism or issues of race is still a significant issue for people of color. 6% said yes, as opposed to 12% of people or 12% of white people who said that or believe that Elvis is still alive. Of course, I mean, it could be a joke or not, but the fact that even a statistic like that exists, it shows you the fact that either people are blind or people don't know how to or desire to deal with these issues. And the other little small video clip that I showed you, and even though it's only like 35 seconds, what's really interesting, right, is that when the lady asked people to stand up if they want to be treated the same way that black and brown people are treated, it's the reality that people do know what is going on, but people don't want to stop those things. And Tim Wise even talked about that, right? And it was a book I read that I thought was really interesting, where a teacher, so it was while all the black kids sitting together, I think it's called At the Lunch Table in the Cafeteria, and the author, who was a brilliant author, she was discussing her time in teaching a class. She was a professor at an institution, and so at the end of the class was about educational and racial inequalities, right? And the issues of privilege. And so one of the things that a white heterosexual male wrote back on one of her responses to the class was that, I hear everything that you're saying, right, professor? However, why would I want to give up my privileges and my benefits if I know I'm going to succeed right now and I'm going to receive all these extra benefits? Which is a very realistic question. And it's very practical, right? Because we, just like I said, we live in a very competitive society where we're all about success and we're all about what are you doing in your lives and how and what awards and achievements do you have and what's your economical standing or holding, whatever you want to call it, right? And so where you have people who are very mindful, you can see the issues that are going on, the response or the natural inclination is to not do anything about it, and that's problematic, simply because you can't then say that we live in a free land, in a land of opportunity, because that's not the truth. Well, what that then becomes is that we're in a land of opportunity based upon a systematic mechanism, and we know that systematic mechanism has greatly or overly been beneficial for individuals who are white, and so we have issues of white denial and people not desiring to stand up for these issues. And I think that's actually part of the reason why I like Tim Wise, or I like to hear what he's saying, because this individual is white. He's very mindful of his privilege and he's doing something to speak against it. But even that is kind of nuanced, right? But however, yeah, I think that for the most part, what we're looking at was, when we're discussing issues of race, we really want to look at, again, what is going on and what is the ultimate, or what's going to be the result of these things and these issues. And so we see that with the VHA and the VA, and all these different programs, the issues were that they allow for the accumulation of white wealth. And we know that wealth is extremely important in our society, because wealth allows you a lot of access or access to a bunch of different resources, opportunities, whatever they may be, even networks that may not seem as if it's a big deal, but they are a great deal. And even a psychological edge as well, because of the fact that you have all these different things, and people perceive you in a different way. But it's a whole different conversation. However, at the end of the day, what I really want you all to get from it, again, right, was really looking at, okay, how can we then see what these historical events, how these things are happening, translate over to what we see now as the results, like our current state of our country, right? And so we see the accumulation of white wealth, the access to different programs and better programs to further their livelihood, and those things actually really do translate into the overall life outcomes of white people versus black people. And so, yeah. That's pretty much it. All right.